Hi there, welcome to Poetics Gaming. Today we're taking our third and final look at the champions of Super Fantasy Brawl. If you didn't join us for the first or second video, here's how we do it. First, we look at the character cards, including their upgraded sides. Then we look at the ability cards, the manipulation core cards, the destruction core cards, and the creation core cards. And finally, we discuss the statistics of each champion. In our first video, we went over our statistical methodology as well as the champions Dugrin, Goldar, and Gwen. In the second video, we went over Kilgore, Suzhou, Darren, Wrath, Mariusz, and Corvash. And today, we're going to be taking a look at Loralei, Nevermore, Taze, Colell, Sulca, and Akhet. Now, if you didn't watch the first video, some of the categories for the statistics may seem confusing. If that's the case, go ahead and click the link that'll be in the description to get a better idea of what we're talking about. The first champion we're going to discuss today is Loralei, Fable of the Fae. Loralei has 2 armor and 4 health, and when she manages to secure a kill, she gains the status, during your upkeep phase, draw 2 additional cards. This is an excellent status effect for an upgraded champion because it allows you to have more options going into your next turn. So let's take a look at Loralei's manipulation core ability cards. The first one is a skill called Clairvoyance. You move 3, draw 1, then plan 5. Now it's important to note that even though it says plan 5, you may place up to 5 cards on top of your deck. You do not have to place 5 total. This card does a couple of things for you. It allows Loralei to move around the board, allows you to draw a card, giving you more options, and it allows you to set up an even better next turn. The next of Loralei's manipulation core ability cards is her reaction, called Intervention. It gives the target of the attack +1 armor, and after the attack, if no damage was dealt, the target may heal 3. Now this is a great card in terms of sustainability because not only does it give the target +1 armor, but if it manages to mitigate the attack entirely, the target also can heal 3. Loralei's destruction core ability cards start with a skill called Grasping Vines. She moves 1 and then makes a direct shot range of 2. The target that she selects will then be placed adjacent to Loralei, and this may target Loralei's allies. This is a good card for manipulating the play space, either for moving enemy champions out of contested areas or bringing allies to necessary places so that they can attack or control key areas of the board. Loralei's second destruction core ability card is an attack called Nature's Wrath. She moves 1, then makes an indirect attack, range of 3 to 4, for a strength of 3, and this attack ignores the defense of the target. This is a great card for Loralei because it allows her to move a little bit out of that support role and help damage the other champions, especially those who have a bit of armor like Dugrin or Kilgore. The first of Loralei's creation core ability cards is a skill called Healing Rain. Loralei moves 3, and then you discard up to 4 cards. Heal your champions 1 for each of their cards discarded. This is an excellent card for sustainability, as it allows you to mitigate a lot of the damage that has been done to them. Additionally, in my play, this card has been an extreme example of a tempo shift. It allows the player to take tempo away from their opponent by mitigating so much damage at once. I think this is a crucial card for playing Loralei, and you should, if you play it correctly, see great results from it. The second of Loralei's creation core ability cards is an attack called Winding Paths. She moves 2, and then makes a direct shot 2 hexes away, for a strength of 2. After the attack, she swaps the target's location with another enemy champion. This is a great card for doing a bit of damage, but more importantly for manipulating the board space for either control or for setting up a big attack against another enemy champion. So how does Loralei compare to the other champions in the game? Well, as you can see, she has the lowest health value, but this is more than made up for by her high armor and movement statistics. She has below average damage per card and low highest single damage. She brings no violence and no maneuverability to a team. Where she makes up for this, though, is in her incredibly high sustain and deck values, well above their respective averages. This makes Loralei an incredibly useful support, because she can get around the board, stay there when she wants to be there, and provide incredible amounts of sustain and deck to her team, giving you more options and more time to think about what options you want to play. Her weakness, though, is any other champion that has the ability to penetrate armor, for example Wrath or Sulka. And for this reason, I think she is an incredibly useful support champion, but one that can be countered by a few of the champions released thus far. The next champion we're going to discuss today is Nevamor, the Shade. Nevermore has 1 armor and 8 health, and when he manages to secure a kill, he does not gain any additional statistics, but he does gain the status that enemies adjacent to Nevermore cannot be targeted by opponents' reactions. This is great for securing those kills against other champions who may be in a weakened state. Nevermore's manipulation core ability cards start with an attack called Dark Envoy. You move 2, and then make a direct attack, range 2 to 3, with the strength of 1. And after the attack, you plan 2. This is a great card for moving around the board, doing a bit of damage, and providing you with a bit of deck control, allowing you to set up big turns after you've played this card. The next of Nevermore's manipulation core ability cards is a skill called Nightmare. You move 1, then swoop 4. Enemies swoop through, suffer 1 damage, and fear 1. This is a great card for maneuvering Nevermore about the board and for doing a little bit of damage and control to your opponents. Nevermore's destruction core ability cards start with his reaction, Murder of Crows. The target receives +1 armor, and after the attack, if Nevermore is within 2 hexes of the attacker, ignore any other post-attack effects and end all other lasting effects. This is a great card for mitigating not only a bit of damage with the armor, but also any other of the attacks that depend on the push or pull to do damage, either into a trap or against a wall. Grim Harvest is the second of his destruction core ability cards, and it's an attack. He moves 2 and then makes a melee attack with the strength of 2. And this attack gains +2 strength if the target has no allies within 2 hexes. This is a great card for doing a bit of damage against an inappropriately placed enemy champion, and gives Nevermore a bit of spikiness that moves him out of the support role and into a bit of the damaging role. The first of Nevermore's creation core ability cards is a skill called Guiding Light. Nevermore moves 2, and then he places one of Nevermore's allies adjacent to Nevermore. That ally gains +1 attack strength until the end of the turn. This is one of my favorite cards of Nevermore's because it allows you to position another champion of yours on the board in the appropriate place to have an excellent turn, and it increases the damage that that ally would do. And what I love particularly about this card is that it can either set up that big attack or make up for a mistake you may have made by allowing you to reposition your champions in a more advantageous way. The next of Nevermore's creation core ability cards is an attack called Soul Reef. Nevermore moves 2 and then makes an indirect attack, range of 2, for a strength of 2, and it gains lifesteal. This is a nice bit of sustain for Nevermore, coupled with a bit of movement, getting him those positions that he needs to be successful. So how does Nevermore stack up to the other champions in the game? He has above average health, armor, and movement, but below average damage per card and highest single damage. His violence is above average, and then every other category he has is slightly below average. It's worth pointing out, however, that Nevermore brings something to the table regardless of the category it's in. He has a bit of deck, control, sustain maneuverability, and violence. And for this reason, he's an excellent gap filler when you have 2 champions on a team who are very good at 2 different things. I think Nevermore is a solid pick for anyone looking for a support who can do a bit of everything. After Nevermore, we have Taze, the Thundering Thriller. Taze has no armor and 9 health, and when he gets a kill, he gets the status effect. When Taze would dash, he may deal 1 damage to an adjacent enemy instead. It's worth noting that Taze has the highest health in the game, tied only with Su Zhao, and that his status effect that he gains is great for securing those kills because it goes through armor values and cannot be reacted against. Taze's manipulation core ability cards start with his reaction, called Momentum. The target of the attack gains +1 armor, and after the attack can dash 1. This is an excellent card for moving your champions out of position so that they can't be damaged by pushes or pulls. The second of his manipulation core ability cards is an attack called Bludgeon. Taze moves 2, makes an indirect attack range of 2 for a strength of 2, and after the attack stuns. This is a great card for dealing a bit of damage to your enemies, but also for altering their deck or their hand. Because when you stun the card, the targeted champion must discard a card from your opponent's hand if they have one, and if they don't, you get a look at their entire hand of cards, which is excellent for knowing what's going to come. Taze's Destruction Core ability cards start with his skill called Rodeo. Taze moves 2, and he may move through enemies. Enemies that are moved through suffer 2 damage. This is a great card for securing damage against a heavily armored opponent, for example a Loralei or a Dugrin, and because it's a skill, it cannot be reacted against using reactions. The second of his Destruction Core ability cards is an attack called Finishing Blow. He makes a melee attack with a strength of 3, but before the attack he dashes 2, and if the target is bloodied, this attack ignores defense. As it lives up to its name, if the target is bloodied, it ignores defense, making it extremely powerful against champions who are already damaged. It's truly that finishing blow that can knock a champion out. The first of Taze's Creation Core ability cards is an attack called Charge. Taze moves 1, and then makes a melee attack with a strength of 1. Before the attack, however, he dashes 3, and this attack gains +1 strength for each hex dashed. I love this card because if you play it properly, you can turn a 1 strength attack into a 4 strength attack with appropriate positioning. The second of Taze's Creation Core ability cards is a skill called Rush. Taze moves 2, and then either Taze or an ally may dash 2. This is a great card for maneuvering around the board and securing those positions to get those challenge objectives completed. So how does Taze compare to the rest of the champions in the game? Well, he has the highest health value, as we've stated previously, but a low armor value. He has above average movement, average damage per card, high single damage, violence, and maneuverability. His sustain, control, and deck are all well below average, however. Taze sits in a very good place compared to the rest of the champions. Because of his high health, high movement, and high maneuverability, he's great for getting into places and staying there once he has arrived. On top of that, because he does above average damage and has a fairly high, highest single damage value, he's good at taking out enemy champions who may be threatening his space on the board. Truly, his only weakness is the fact that he does not bring a whole lot of sustain or control. He's not great at removing other champions from their places other than by knocking them out. Regardless, I think Taze is an excellent choice for any team. The next champion we're going to talk about today is Colell, the Jungle Typhoon. Colell has 0 armor and 8 health, and when she secures a kill, she gains the status that targets suffer -2 armor against Colell's attacks. This is an excellent status effect because it gives Colell even more dangerous potential. She can knock out champions who might have an advantage against attacks like Dugrin or Loralei, or against any other champion that may play a reaction against her attacks. Colell's Manipulation Core ability cards start with her reaction, Blinding Dart. The target of the attack gains +1 armor, and after the attack, the attacker suffers stun. This is a great card for the sustainability, but also for the deck control it gives you against your opponent. The next of Colell's Manipulation Core ability cards is her attack called Tongue Lash. She moves 1, and then makes a direct line attack range of 3 for a strength of 1. And after the attack, if damage was dealt, the target suffers pull 2 and stun. Now, this card, I would say, is probably on the weaker side of attack cards because it only has a strength of 1. And most champions, by playing a reaction, can mitigate that damage, thus getting rid of the post-attack effect. I'd recommend either playing this card after you've already leveled up Colell, allowing her to take away 2 armor from her target, or with another champion that can boost her attack damage, allowing you to get the benefits of that post-attack effect. The first of Colell's Destruction Core ability cards is an attack called Mighty Jump. She moves 1 and then targets everyone around her with an attack strength of 2. Before the attack, however, she jumps 3, and after the attack, she pushes 1. This is a great card not only because it targets multiple champions, but also because of the push 1, which allows her to effectively move champions off of important areas on the board for those challenges. The second of her Destruction Core ability cards is an attack called Poison Dart. She moves 1 and then makes an indirect attack range of 3 for a strength of 2 with Poison 1. What this means is that if damage is done to the opposing champion, another damage is put on top of it. This is an excellent card for securing damage against unarmored targets, but suffers a bit against enemies who have a bit of armor. Colell's Creation Core ability cards start with an attack called Double Jump. It's a melee attack with a strength of 2. Before the attack, she jumps 3, and after the attack, she jumps 3. This is a great card for jumping into the fray, doing a bit of damage, and jumping out, getting to where you need to be either to secure those challenges or to get out of the way of an enemy champion. The second of Colell's Creation Core ability cards is a skill called Scout Ahead. She moves 2, then draws 3, then plans 3. And, as was previously noted, Plan 3 does not mean that you have to place 3 cards from your hand on top of your deck. It means you can place up to 3 cards from your hand on top of your deck, allowing you to prepare for that great turn after this one. Let's see how Colell compares to the other champions in the game. She has above average health, no armor, and below average movement. She has above average damage per card, but low highest single damage and very low violence. She has the highest maneuverability statistic in the game, low sustain, and above average control, and she has the highest deck value in the game as well. Colell is an excellent champion for someone who is looking for a maneuverable character who can do a bit of damage and also provide a bit of support. I would say that she fits well in with characters who can do a lot of damage or who are tanky. I suspect she'll be an extremely popular pick for her maneuverability and for the fact that she brings a lot to the table with regards to deck, control, and damage. Moving on to Sulca, the Poisoned Mind. Sulca has 0 armor and 7 health, and when she secures a kill, her health statistic goes up by 1, and she gains the status effect after you play a Sulca manipulation card, draw 1, plan 1. As we can see, Sulca fits into that category of champions that is more of a support character than a damaging or tank character. The first of Sulca's manipulation core ability cards is an attack called Life Drain. She moves 2, then makes a direct attack range of 3 for a strength of 2. The attack has lifesteal, and you may choose to heal one of Sulca's allies instead. This is a great little card for doing a bit of damage and providing you and your team with sustainability, either for Sulca or another champion who might not be as strong as Sulca in terms of health. The next of her manipulation core ability cards is a skill called Effigy. Sulca moves 2, then targets someone 2 hexes away. She forces them 1 and then stuns them. This is a great card for controlling the area and for manipulating the hand of your opponent. The Destruction Core ability cards for Sulca start with an attack called Darting Strikes. She targets someone 3 hexes away in direct line of sight and does an attack strength of 2. The attack is also doubled. This is a good little card for providing damage against an unarmored target. The second of her Destruction Core ability cards is a skill called Mind Control. Sulca moves 2, and then discard the top card of an opponent's deck. The matching enemy suffers force 2. I really enjoy this card because it gives you that control, but what makes it fun is that you don't know which champion is going to come up for you to force. Now, because there is open information in this game, you can go ahead and look at your opponent's discard pile and make a calculated guess as to whether or not this is the Destruction Core card you want to play on your turn. The first of Sulca's Creation Core ability cards is a skill called Spirit Slither. Sulca moves 3, and she may move through enemies, statues, and traps. Enemies she moves through suffer -2 armor until the end of the turn. This is a fantastic card for setting up attacks against heavily armored targets like Dugrin or Loralei. In fact, I would say that Sulca is an excellent counter for Loralei purely because of this card, because it sets up that massive attack against Loralei that she simply probably will not be able to defend against. The second of Sulca's Creation Core ability cards is her reaction, Curse. It gives the target of the attack +2 armor and after the attacker suffers root. I think this is one of the best reactions in the game because of the high sustainability and also for the fact that you can stop the attacker in their tracks. Root means that the attacker will not be able to move of their own volition following this card being played. So how does Sulca compare to the other champions in the game? She has below average health, no armor, but above average movement. She has below average damage per card. She has low highest single damage, no violence, no maneuverability. Her sustain is above average, as is her control, but she has low deck. Compared to other champions in the game, she might appear weak, but I would argue that Sulca is actually one of the stronger support champions in the game because she hard counters several of the other champions who she may be played against. She can move around the board fairly easily, and in my experience, she has a lot of options at her disposal for countering situations that come up. I don't think she's the easiest champion to play due to her low health and other low statistics, but I do think she's a worthwhile candidate for anyone looking for a support type character who brings a lot to the table with regards to their versatility. The final champion we'll be discussing is Akhet, Light of Creation. Akhet has 1 armor and 7 health. When he secures a kill, he gains 1 additional health and the following status effect. During an Akhet attack activation, you may discard any number of destruction cards from your hand. This attack gains +1 strength for each card discarded. This is a highly situational status effect, and for that reason, I think it's one of the weaker upgraded status effects in the game. In order for it to work well, I believe you need to have additional cards in your hand through a draw card, or through a champion that gives you additional draw, like Loralei on her upgraded side. The first of Akhet's manipulation core ability cards is a skill called Take Flight. Swoop 4, and then place the first champion swoop through adjacent to Akhet. Swoop means that you will, in a hex line, move the number of spaces indicated, or up to the number of spaces indicated, and you can ignore enemy champions or statues as long as you land in an empty hex. This is a great card for Akhet because it gives him maneuverability with the Swoop 4, but also gives him a degree of control, allowing him to place champions, either your allies, in important places to secure challenges, or to prevent your enemies from securing challenges by moving them away from them. The next of Akhet's manipulation core ability cards is an attack called Death from Above. It's a melee attack with a target of 3 hexes in front of him in his sweep for a strength of 2. And before the attack, he swoops 3. This is a great card because it provides maneuverability in the swoop 3 and can do up to 6 damage against your opponent at once. Akhet's destruction core ability cards start with an attack called Wingstorm. Akhet moves 1, targets someone in a direct line 2 hexes away with an attack with the strength of 1, and after the attack, push 2. I like this card because it can do damage, or it can reposition an opponent, and it can do up to 3 damage if you do it in such a way that the push values are translated into damage because your target cannot be moved back. The next destruction core ability card for Akhet is his reaction, called From the Ashes. After the attack, if the target was taken out of action by the attack, place them adjacent to the attacker instead of on their gate. This card is useful for when you know that you have a champion that is liable to be taken out of action. Of course, the question is, do you want to use a destruction core for your turn on this card just to keep a champion in place? The answer is probably yes if you are challenging or vying for an area that is going to reward victory points through a challenge, but probably not if that champion is just going to be taken out of action and be replaced on your gate and then eventually into your deployment area. Akhet's creation core ability cards start with a skill called Healing Tears. He moves 2 and then heals 2, and you may discard a manipulation card from your hand to heal an adjacent ally instead. This card is great for moving Akhet around the board, but also for providing a bit of sustain, either for himself or for an ally. And as was stated, looking at his champion cards, his character cards, he benefits from being with a champion who provides a bit of draw to your hand so that you can discard those cards without suffering too much in terms of your tactical options. The next of his creation core cards is a skill called Inner Fire. Akhet moves 3. Return a destruction card from your discard pile to your hand, and Akhet's attacks gain +1 strength until the end of the turn. This is a great card for getting back a destruction core card, either Akhet's or one of his allies, so that you can play it on this turn. The fact that it gives Akhet a bit of damage as well as 3 movement is just a bonus. So how does Akhet, the final champion we're going to be discussing today, stack up against the other champions in the game? Well, as you can see, he has below average health, below average movement, and highest single damage. He also has the lowest average damage per card and deck values in the game. But he has above average armor, maneuverability, sustain, and control. So why choose Akhet? Well, I would say that Akhet fits into a category best described as tanky, controlling support. He doesn't provide you with a lot of damage, but he does provide for you a degree of sustainability when he's on the board. He can get to places with his high maneuverability, and he can manipulate the play space through his high control value. I would, if I were to select Akhet, make sure that I'm selecting other champions that have high damage outputs. For example, Gwen, Darren, Corvash, Mariusz, or Wrath. I think he has an excellent place in the game, but like some of the other supports, you need to understand exactly what it is you are trying to do when you select him, and cannot just be selected haphazardly. Thanks for watching the third and final installment of the Super Fantasy Brawl Champion Overview. If you want to learn how to play the game, or you just like to play a game, you can go ahead and send me an email at poeticsgaming@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to try it yourself, you can go to tabletopia.com/games/Super Fantasy Brawl. For our next video, I'd like to do a look at team compositions and advanced strategy. If you have any suggestions for that, go ahead and leave me a comment or send me an email. Thank you. See you next time.